Hey, what's up, guys? So now we're on part two, talking about the Darrell Brooks trial. All right. So look, I started thinking maybe some of you guys don't understand why the judge is so insistent on him not interrupting people. All right. So I'm going to explain that. And also I'm gonna something else. I'm gonna go ahead and explain to you guys because a lot of you guys probably don't understand how all this stuff is supposed to work. All right. Um, the rules and regulations that that are set in place. Every court procedure has to follow those basic guidelines. And I'm going to explain that really quick. And that is the judge is the judge. They have the final say so in every aspect of the trial. If the judge thinks something is irrelevant, they will throw that out. They will say, this is irrelevant. This is going to muddy the waters, is what this is going to do. We don't need that. We need everything to get to the facts in the fastest way possible. We can't have a parade in the courtroom that is going to take the jury's mind off of important critical details and instead focusing on minute and insignificant issues. You understand? That is what he has done throughout this whole trial. That is why he should not have been defending himself. Um, and at the end of the day, yes, it would probably make no difference whatsoever. But the flow and the record of this trial would have been so much better if he had, if he took her warning before he decided to represent himself, if he took that to heart and said, okay, I reconsidered. I think I will go with counsel. I think I might have a better chance at fighting this conviction. And keep in mind, it really wouldn't have made a big difference in this trial right here. They got him dead to rights. All right. They knew exactly what was going on. They knew that he was driving that car. All right. So there is no possible way out of that. If he wanted to argue that, then his defense should have been false identification. He then would have to bring in witnesses to say, I am not Darrell Brooks. I am this person. I have always been this person. This is my wife. This is my daughter. This is whoever else it is. Okay? Then that establishes a little bit of credibility to say, okay, maybe you were an innocent bystander there and maybe the real killer got away. Maybe. But let's put that to the test. Let's check out your identification that has Darrell Brooks on it. Let's make sure that's not a fake. Let's find out where Darrell Brooks came from, who it was that created this fictional character. That would have been his defense. And that would have been a valid defense. Of course, it's not an accurate defense because he is, in fact, Darrell Brooks. He is not an innocent bystander. He was the one driving the car. There's no way around that. But that would have um, gave an opening that would have unlocked the door for years and years down the road for someone to pick up the case and say, oh, mistaken identity. He's claiming he was an innocent bystander in the crowd. And when they caught him, his appearance was different. He doesn't match whatever his defense would have been. That's what they would have seen. And so they would have picked up the case and they would have had at least a small position to say, maybe we can reopen this case. Maybe we can just make sure we got the right guy. And then they would have started looking into all the testimony, everything that was said, everything that was done, what evidence did they have, what evidence did he have to substantiate his innocence. He would have had at least a doorway into a possible reopening to get a new trial. Keeping in mind, even with that defense, the chances of anyone picking up the case and saying, maybe we got something here, in my opinion, and that's something I learned recently. Whenever someone says, I am going to opine on this, that means they're giving an opinion. I had to look that up because I was like, I need to know what this word means because I'm hearing it a lot during debates. And that's what it means when they say, I'm going to opine here. That means they are stating an opinion that is based on their personal experience. All right. So if you're going to, watch debates and try and form an opinion about whatever it is that they're saying, understand the terminology they're using. Because when you do that, when you actually research and look up the words they're talking about, you can make sure what they're saying is factually accurate. You know what I'm saying? Because if it's not, then you can start to realize, like, oh, wait, they used opine wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or they used this phrase wrong. That's not what that means at all. That will start to lend you toward probably an accurate opinion. You can then opine about that debate in a more accurate way because you've researched what they were saying. You've listened to both parties equally. All right. And that is the role of a judge during a trial. That is what they are doing. They are listening to both sides and they're trying to weigh every piece of information in a fair and accurate manner. That is what their job is. Now, the problem here is that Darrell Brooks was trying to take her job. He was trying to be the judge on his own trial. That is what his position was. After watching quite a bit of it, I'm pretty sure that is what his role was. He was trying to say that the judge was not authentic, trying to criticize her background, trying to criticize the credentials of the prosecutors, trying to get this thrown out and this thrown out and that thrown out because he didn't consent to it. That is what the judge's role is for all court cases. If there's a judge, they are basically the referee. Okay. The referee's job is to say, I want a clean and fair fight. That's the role of the judge. I want a clean and fair fight. She was there to fight for the defendant, Darrell Brooks, and fight for the prosecution because the judge wants a fair and accurate trial. So the judge doesn't want for later on for someone to pick up the case and say, this looks like a miscarriage of justice. I hope I said that phrase right. If not, let me know. I just had to look it up, because I've heard the phrase a few times, but I wanted to make sure that I'm saying it accurately. All right. That's what she was trying to avoid here. She wanted to give him the best chance possible. She threw him life raft after life raft after life raft. And every single time she threw him a life raft, he popped it and said, no more. Do not send me any more life rafts. I will drown before I accept help from you. That was his overall mentality. I believe that's what it was. He felt like the entire trial was a fraud. Okay? He does not understand that he can watch. Apparently, this is my opinion. He must not understand. He can go and do exactly like we're doing and watch other trials and watch and see how they play out. And watch and see information that the prosecution wants to bring into the courtroom and say, this is valid evidence. This is critical to our case. And he will be able to watch the judge look at them on occasion and say, this is highly prejudicial against the defendant, and I cannot allow it. Because it is either not relevant or whatever the ruling is. And that will happen. The prosecution's job is to bring every bit of information that makes the client look guilty. But they're not the judges. They can't just bring in something and magically say, this is admitted into evidence. So the jury can see it. Everyone in the courtroom can see it. They can't do that. Bring in a briefcase full of silver bullets. And they could say, this defendant is a werewolf. And we have everything we need to take this werewolf down. And the judge's job is to say, maybe he's not a werewolf. Maybe he's completely innocent and you would kill a human being mistaking him for a werewolf because of biases. So I think I'm saying that right. Biases. That is what the judge wants to make sure this information hasn't come from a biased place, from a biased source. For example, let's say they watched news footage from a channel somewhere and they show a clip of a part of the incident, okay? And it makes the client look guilty. It makes it, let's say they showed a pretty good picture of the driver, and the driver looks like the defendant. The prosecution could see that and say, we want that video to be shown in the courtroom for the jury to see, so the jury could look at the video, look at the defendant, and then say, it looks like the same guy. I'm pretty, I'm positive that's the guy. They got the right guy. We can see and identify, all right? But that does not mean that is, they can just snap their fingers and it happens. There is a process for that, and the judge is the one who's going to determine whether that came from a biased source. So the judge is going to evaluate that. They're going to look into the credentials of the sources, all right? So what they're going to do, they're going to evaluate that piece of evidence, and they're going to ask the question, is this, I'm going to use a terminology that he used, okay? And I'm going to explain what he meant by that. His questions, a few times, I don't know how many, I know quite a few times, he asked, is this lawful law? Does this hold up in other trials? All right. Is this written into law that all court procedures must follow, thereby making it lawful law? Now, that is not the accurate way to identify what that is, what he's trying to say. Okay, that's not the accurate term for that. And the answer to that question is yes, because the judge has said so. So what I wish he would know is that he could go and watch trials and understand how they work and understand the judges there in favor of both parties, the prosecution and the defense equally. Okay, if they're not, that is something that can be taken up with during the appeal process. That is the time when he could put on record, because he would get a chance then to write whatever he wants in his appeal form. He would get lots of forms, he would get lots of questions, and he could say this and this and this, and the judge didn't provide evidence for this and that and whatever else he wants. That's the time for that argument, not during the trial. During the trial, his job is to follow the instructions of the court and cooperate with the judicial system. If you do not do that, that is not grounds for a dismissal. It's not grounds to get it thrown out or anything like that. That does not work. What I would like to know is, could he at any point say, I'm in over my head, I cannot represent myself? Can I get an attorney now back on the case? Is that possible? That's what I would like to know. I think I'm going to have to do some research into that. I know there is a process to have a standby attorney for such a situation, but I think he screwed himself by not understanding how the system works. Now, I'm going to explain that really quick, but just know I'm cutting out all of my coughing episodes. It's really starting to bother me, so I got to end the video soon. All right. But look, so the problem that I think has happened is he didn't understand the process of how the judicial system works. He doesn't understand it. He thinks he makes up his own rules. He thinks if he says it and puts in a regulation into the court, that is now, that they have to abide by it. I spoke it into existence, so now that is lawful law, to put it in his words. That's what that means. That's what his interpretation of it is. And he's even said that, because my interpretation of the law means this. So that means my interpretation overrides the judge, overrides the prosecution, overrides everybody else. I am in control. This is about me, myself, and what I need. And what I need is for you guys to realize that, because I think that there has to be a human being who is a plaintiff, right? Not a entity, that means we can't have any of that stuff now, because Darrell Brooks has said and spoke into existence that this is a regulation, that an entity cannot prosecute a human being. Um, well, guess what? Contrary to your belief, that is a real thing, and that is in the regulations. That's how the system works. Do you want to know who the plaintiff is? It's the prosecutors. They're the ones that are there bringing the case against you. They are representing the entity. So understand how this works. The entity is the mythical thing that is set forth that has laws you have to abide by. Okay? Give you a few examples of those laws. You can't endanger public safety with utter disregard for human life. That is a law. You cannot do that. If you do that, the entity, which is the law, is how we'll describe it, the law, that is the entity that says, if you do this, I will have to get a plaintiff, which is a prosecutor, to say you broke these laws. You see how that works? And then that filters down to the prosecutors. That is your human being that's saying, no, you can't do that. That is a crime. It is against the law. We will prosecute you for that. It's as simple as that. Okay? He's taken stuff that anyone with a basic understanding of life should be able to read and understand how it works. But at the end of the day, his brain is broken. I'm sorry to tell y'all, it's broken. I mean, he has listened to propaganda. In my opinion, that's what is going on here. He's fed into propaganda. He's blaming stuff on politics, which is incredibly annoying, and it's getting old and it's getting tired. You know what I'm saying? It really is. Like, this whole woke movement, I get it. It makes sense. But at the end of the day, at a certain point, can we change the channel? Can we talk about something else? Isn't there other more important issues going on? But no. In my opinion, arguing against the woke movement is kind of like the woke movement they're arguing against. Can we not see that? There's a channel that I love, and I'm going to explain this really quick, and then we're going to watch a few minutes of this. We'll explain this really quick so you guys can understand this. Okay? Awaken with JP. I love the channel. I love what he does. He speaks out against the woke movement. Okay? But look at the title of his channel. Awaken with JP. Become woke. But then fight against the woke community. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying that. Arguing against the woke community is kind of like, I'm going to point fingers at you and say, nah, you're full of shit. But at the same time, I'm also doing something that directly is very similar to what I'm pointing fingers at you for doing. I'm saying you're woke and that's bad. I'm saying I woke up and you were just still sleeping. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of an odd thing. You know, it really is. And it's kind of like, it can go both ways too. Like one guy, like Tom McDonald would say, fake woke, right? You think you're woke, but you're not. You're still sleeping. When you wake up in the Matrix, now you're in the Matrix. Now you're in the fictional world. That is the actual world that is the Matrix. The other world Neo was in was reality. They zapped him out of reality and put him to sleep and put him in the Matrix, which was the fictional world. His body, so as his body was coming out of that little thing he was in with all the tubes connected to him, as one body was going out, the other body was going in. His actual body, his actual world that he lived in, got put to sleep so the Matrix could take him over. So that's the argument. So they're both kind of arguing against each other. They're saying, you're asleep and I'm awake. The other one's saying, no, I'm awake and you're asleep. It's the same argument. And they're fighting with each other. And they're not bringing, in my opinion, any facts or any relevant information to point to the contrary. All right? It's just a never-ending circle and a spiral, pointing fingers at each other for the same shit. Same exact shit. And he has bought into it. And one opinion that I could make is perhaps it doesn't matter what side you're on. Whether you think you're asleep, you're awake, whether you're... doesn't matter. This is one of my opinions that could be relevant here, that could end up happening. If you're going to complain about any type of woke movement, any type of anything like that, then guess what? You're in that bubble, and that's not good. We need to come out of that, and we need to focus on other issues. So, there you go. That's just a theory that might become relevant. That might be the direction we need to go. That might be where we need to start saying anything that says anything about woke, we're just going to ban it. We're just going to say, you know what? We're tired of it. Shut the hell up and go on somewhere. Okay? Every bit of it. The whole fake woke, I'm woke, you're asleep, you're this, you're that. Get rid of that. It's pointing fingers. It's playing the blame game. Let's stop playing the blame game. Start focusing on the issues and talk about real world solutions. It's as simple as that. I mean, one person looks like they're doing this, and then everyone else comes in and jumps on them and says, oh, he's blah, 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 blah. Makes no sense. All right. So what we're going to do, I'm going to play a few minutes of this, and then we're going to watch a music video. Okay? The video is from SNL. It's going to perfectly explain the problem with his outbursts. Okay? Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and explain this. The whole reason why I started the video in the first damn place. Okay? The record is the most crucial part of any trial. The written document is basically the holy grail of this trial. Because at the end of the day, when all this is over with, that's all that's going to be left, is the documents. Is the evidence saying this was admitted on this day, this was admitted on this day. On this day, they had this witness, and this is what they said. Everything will be laid out in a cohesive manner so that anyone later on can pick up the documents, look through them, and ask their questions as a judge would and say, was this a fair and accurate trial? So, and the problem is, if that document is not clear and cohesive, it's going to be a nightmare for anyone to pick it up. Now, of course, in this day and age where most trials are televised, and they're put on the internet, they could always pick these up and watch them. That's also not a good thing. And I'm going to explain why. Even with this televised trial, if they go and watch it, they could end up getting super frustrated, feeling like there might have been some crucial testimony, some crucial information that got mumbled over because of interruptions, because of this, because of that. You interrupt people's trains of thought, and then they're going to forget possibly some crucial information. You need to allow every single witness and every single party, when it's their turn to have a say-so in the trial, that they can do so without being interrupted. When it is their floor, they need to have that time to say what they need to say. That is their time to shine, right? The ball is in their court at that moment. The judge can take that ball away at any time and say, no, that's enough. Your ball time is over. That's the judge that can make that decision. For any reason, the judge does not need to give any explanations whatsoever. If the judge says overruled, guess what? It's overruled. It's time to move on. It's time to get to another point that you wanted to make. Because that point is dead. That's overruled. If the judge overrules an objection that the prosecution makes, it goes the same way for them. They then know, okay, this point I wanted to make here is dead. The judge has overruled it. I should not bring it up again. You cannot strenuously object and have that stand. That is not a good thing to do. I think that was, A Few Good Men, where she said that. I strenuously object, though, Your Honor. I want to overrule your overruling. That's what I want to do. I want to sit here and argue with you over this ruling. All right. That's not going to work. It would be extremely rare for a judge to overrule something and then later on, after someone strenuously objects, and then say, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have overruled that. Fair point. But it can't happen. But there's a procedure for that. They would, I've seen it happen in other trials. I don't remember what the procedure was called. They can, there's a term for it. I don't remember what it is. Any party can say, I want to have a sidebar. I think that's what it is. I think they say sidebar. That means the two parties would come to the bench and then they would have a discussion with the judge. Both parties would get a chance to say, hey, wait a minute. This point is valid because of this, this, and this. Okay? This is a valid and critical point that should not be overruled. That is your time to strenuously object. Okay? That's your time to do that. When the judge says, sidebar, come to me, have a discussion with me right now about this critical point of information, and I will make a decision based on each person's points of view. When I give them the ball, they will have a few moments to tell me why their point is valid and the other person's point is not valid. The ball will be passed to the other person and they will get to do the same. Then the judge will make their final decision on the matter, and then they will either say overruled or abstained. I think is how that phrase is pronounced. I think it's abstained. I'm not for sure. That is the procedure for how that works. So that is what he should have done, in my opinion. From what I believe and from what I know, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure at any point he could have requested for a sidebar to have the two parties come and speak to the judge personally. Or they would escort the jury out to have that debate, to have that small debate, a few moments that the judge depicts and dictates how that debate will go. You get a few moments, you get a few moments. Now it's my turn. Now I'm going to tell you guys what my decision is. And that's final. I don't want to hear another word about that point. That's the procedure. That's how it works. That's what he should have done. Now, I don't know how many times he could have requested for a sidebar and actually got one. I've seen other trials where they would all just put on headphones. And they would block the sound so that the jury couldn't hear what they were saying. So they didn't have to keep escorting them out or anything. But they had lots and lots and lots of sidebars to where they could all have a private discussion about specific points. So that's the time for that to happen. Okay, but the judge is the one that's going to dictate everything. Everything. I cannot believe how nice this judge is. Usually judges are very inconsiderate of people. But keeping in mind the regulations are set forth to be that way. Because as I said, they're the judge. They get to dictate everything about the courtroom and the trial and the procedures. There is no other entity higher than them at that moment. All right. Later on, if there is inconsistencies with the rulings, if there was favoritism, if there was anything else that could be pointed out during the appeal process, now you have a different discussion. Now you have regulations for that process, but not during the trial. That's not when that process can happen. It's not when it should happen. It's not when it can happen. So he has done nothing but popped every single lifeboat. And we're not talking about 5 or 6. From what I've seen, thousands of lifeboats. And he pops them every single time. So they take his needle away so he can't pop the lifeboats. Then he finds a knife and he starts slashing the lifeboat. You see what I'm saying? So it's like nothing matters to this person except his perception and how he thinks things should be run. He thinks he is in control in the situation. He doesn't have a clue. If he had one person he could have talked to that had any bit of common sense, I'm pretty sure he would have had a much better time in court. If he had one person to talk some sense into him. To explain to him, you are popping all your lifeboats. When they wanted you to change out of your prison uniform and put on a suit and tie, that was to your benefit. And he didn't even understand that. So I'm briefly going to explain that, and then we're going to start watching these videos. All right. So here's how the judge, here's the reason why the judge wanted to emphasize on that. There is a preconceived prejudice against people who are in the prison system. If you're arrested, you look like a criminal. If you're wearing an orange jumpsuit, you look like a prisoner. If you're in cuffs, you look like you're guilty because you've been arrested. So they don't want him to have any appearance of being arrested, of being this, of being that. That would have been unfair, or it was unfair to the defendant, and the judge was pointing that out. That was a lifeboat. That was a very small lifeboat, because remember, at the end of the day, the evidence has him nailed dead to rights. So it wouldn't have made any difference. So it was a very small lifeboat, very small. And he still popped it and said, I'm going to wear whatever I want. Now, what he didn't understand is you are more likely to believe and listen to a person wearing a suit and tie who looks clean, who looks well dressed. That's why they have the dress code. They have to. I mean, if you watch My Cousin Vinny, watch it and understand. The judge wanted Joe Pesci to look a certain way. And he said, if you don't wear this, I'm going to hold you in contempt of court, which means I'm going to arrest your ass. you need to be wearing a suit and tie that better be made out of some type of cloth. That was his ruling on that. Um, and that is the same thing that that judge was saying. You need to be wearing a suit and tie so you look presentable in my courtroom. So that when I tell the court to listen to this person, because I'm going to give you the ball, I'm going to give you your chance to shine, everyone's going to listen to you and hear you out. I want you to look a certain way so that no one looks at this person with a prejudice to say, he looks bad, right? His suit looks like a clown suit. I don't believe a word he says. The judge doesn't want that. That could show up later on, and someone reads that, and then they could say, because Joe Pesci looked like a clown, let's say they got convicted, and they went to appeal. Then, what's going to happen? Someone could pick it up and say, Joe Pesci looked like a clown. That's why they got convicted. That's why they lost the case. We got to retry this. We need to get an attorney who doesn't look like a clown, because everything he said made sense. Every piece of evidence worked. It fit. We found, let's say we found the right guys, but we still left them in jail because of how guilty they looked. They still found them guilty. Okay. You're going to have a huge mess on your hands at that point. A huge mess. And the judge don't want that. They want to have everything work cohesively. And that's why they bring up other trials. If you ever wondered that, that's why. Because they want every single trial to abide by the same regulations. To say, this piece of evidence was hearsay, so it was ruled out. But in this trial, a similar piece of evidence, they can draw the lines, they can put the two and two together, then they can say, this piece of evidence was exactly like this evidence, it was the same situation, and this judge allowed it and said it was not hearsay. Now you have a conflict. They don't want conflicts. That would be a huge snowball of a cluster fuck that they would have to unfuck. You know what I'm saying? That's what they would have to do. They'd all have to come together and say, wait a minute, one of these judges is wrong. We need to find out which one. And then we're going to start taking some drastic actions to make sure this doesn't ever happen again. Okay? Because every single trial needs to abide by the same laws and regulations. And he can research other cases and he can find out everything that is a conflict. All right? And then he can go from there. Now, what he should have been doing was taking notes for his appeal process. That's what my opinion is. That's what he should have been doing. He shouldn't have been fighting with the things. He shouldn't have been doing any of that. He should have been taking notes. This thing didn't have a seal of approval or whatever else. Whatever he wants to say, he could write it down and have that prepared for, the appeal if it goes to that point. If he gets convicted, he's going to get a chance to file an appeal. That's when he'll get to refer to all his notes, and then he'll get to lay out his entire case for someone to pick it up and hear him out in his written defense. Because he would then say, oh, the judge supplied me with this information. That wasn't right. They didn't supply me with this. They didn't supply me with that. If that holds up, and that's actually true, now he has a leg to stand on. Now he has an advocate to speak for him and say, this looks like a miscarriage of justice. We're going to reopen this case. He's going to get a new trial. That could absolutely happen. But realistically, not in this case. In my estimate, there would be a 0.0 to infinity chance that he could get a new trial. 0.0. In other words, not a chance. Not a chance in hell. The other thing that's made this to where I can comfortably say there's no chance in hell he can get a new trial someday is because of his temperament. They take one look at this case and see him behaving like this. They're not going to touch it. They're going to read the first line that he's interrupting the judge right off the bat. I mean, they might flip a few pages and read one more line and see, oh, he did it this day, and then a week later he does it again. Close the book. I'm done with it. Move on to the next thing. That was 10 minutes of my time, and I want my 10 minutes back, sir. That'll be $3,000. It's what they would want to do. I'm not kidding you. That is what they would want to do if they could. If they could say $3,000 for 10 minutes of my time to look through your case. They would absolutely want to do that if they could. Okay. It's not an easy process to get a new trial. There's cases that, in my opinion, deserves a new trial, but it's been years and years and years. It's incredibly rare. All right. Even for good cases, even for cases that looks like it might actually be a miscarriage of justice, they still have a 0.0001% chance of getting a new trial. They don't start up new trials for no reason. There has to be legitimate, valid arguments, and the record needs to be cohesive. Every bit of information needs to be easy to find and laid out in a way that's easy to track and understand. How the events supposedly took place, how this came together, how that came together, how this witness saw this happen at this time, and then a few minutes later, several blocks down the road, another witness at that time. The times need to line up with the story. And if those are out of order and they're all mixed up, and it's like TLDR, that's something, another phrase I learned recently. Okay, you don't want that. If anyone is picking up a case to say, is this a miscarriage of justice or possible miscarriage of justice, if they say after 10 minutes this is a TLDR, which means too long, didn't read, it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo. An example of that is a song that goes on for 30 minutes and it's rap and it's like real quick. Who's gonna watch a lyric video or read the lyrics to a song that makes no sense? That's just a bunch of random words put together. How long are they going to read that before they say TLDR? You know, there's no sense in me reading this whole thing because from what I can see, I've read a little bit of it. It makes no sense. Nothing is fitting together. It's not a cohesive story. It's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. TLDR. That is exactly what anyone would ever think. That's an opinion. When he goes to appeal, they probably ain't even going to pick up the folder. They're going to scan it into the computers and that's it. It's done. He could send them the file. They don't have to open it. And they probably won't. Ever. You know what I'm saying? Ever. Like, it's done, dude. You're done. I mean, he got what he wanted, I guess. He disrupted the trial for a little bit. He gave them a hard time. Now, I'm probably not going to get to show very much of this. I'm going to do some research and see if I can actually show any of this at all. I know from watching Emily that one of these networks will strike channels. All right, and I don't want to get that. So if this is one of the channels that was mentioned that has the strike policy, then you guys might see the picture I'm looking at right now, and then we're just going to skip right to the music video. I'm going to watch a few minutes of this, and I'm going to provide a little bit of commentary. If their whole section is missing, that's because I had an issue with it. And as a matter of fact, I'm already going to cut every bit of their video out. So you're not going to see or hear any video. All right. You're just going to see it skip forward, and then I'm going to have some commentary. Just a little bit. Then we're going to get to the music video. Then we're done. Let's go. Now, what's happening right now is that he's saying it should be obvious to everybody that I'm in custody. Okay. That's not the case. All right. The jury is not allowed to be doing any research. They're not allowed to watch the news. They're not allowed to do anything on their own. Everything they see and hear has to come from the trial, not from their own research. If a jury member points it out and says, hey, isn't this guy arrested right now? Okay. That could be grounds for a mistrial. You now have a corrupted jury member who has possibly gotten some prejudicial information. Now, so you don't want that. All right. You don't. And the judge is explaining to him that in many trials in a similar situation, the jury had no idea that the defendant was actually in custody at the time of the trial. That is put in place to protect that defendant from looking guilty. If he looks guilty, then you have a situation to where if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then maybe it's a damn duck. And the judge doesn't want that. The judge wants the jury to weigh the evidence that they see that only comes from the court system, because that has been cleansed. Okay, and what I mean by that is the judge has weighed the information and has decided this is clear and accurate information. It is what it proposes to be. Eyewitness testimony is just that. And then if the judge finds out, oh, this person who gave this eyewitness testimony saying that they were strangers, they didn't know anything about each other. Later on, they find out, oh, wait a minute, they were roommates in college and they got in fights all the time. Oh, Well, wait a minute now. So maybe this witness had a prejudice against this person because of prior conflicts. Um, and then in a heated conflict or whatever else, right? They could then overreact or not react the right way or misinterpret something because of the same thing. A prior prejudice against this person. This person is an idiot. I'm not going to listen to them. It's time to fight. So now that person's eyewitness testimony could potentially be thrown out. It's that simple. The judge has to cleanse that. The judge has to say, hey, wait a minute. Are you positive? These two people do not know each other. Never, right? Never. And that is where they would look to the investigation, because the investigators would be the ones who bring forth that information. Well, we investigated this and we found out these two people did know each other. They were roommates. They did fight all the time. There you go. So that information has now been determined that it is not admissible. So that witness now cannot testify. Period. You have to go home now. You're not allowed to be in this courtroom and give your testimony because I've decided it could unfairly prejudice the defendant. Simple. To me, this is simple stuff. If you guys don't think so, that's fine. If you think I'm totally wrong, that's fine. There's plenty of information out there that you guys can go and grab and point out to me and say, I don't think so. But my opinion is that wouldn't happen very much because I think I have a firm grasp of how the basics of trials work. You know what I'm saying? And most people who's been through a lot of trials, they could do the same thing and they could say, no, that don't work. It's not going to work to claim you're a sovereign citizen and have, all these special things for you going into court. And you'd be able to overrule the judge and have it stand. That's not going to work. That person would say, nah, I've seen it happen many times. They still get convicted. They still go to jail. They still have to do their time. That's not a good play. Don't do that. They would tell you, I've seen more people, by a lot, win their cases by playing the game the way the judge wants it to be played. You play by the rules, you'll have a chance. You'll have a fair chance at winning your case. Let's move on. So here we go with SNL. This video will probably be darkened up quite a bit. And it is SNL, so it is copyrighted material. Okay? So I have to drastically alter the video in order for it to not get taken down, or to not get blocked. Okay? I have to do that. I have to play by the rules. Okay? I can't just put it up there and be like Darrell Brooks and say, I'm going to overrule your block. And I'm going to say, I'm the one who makes that decision. So you're overruled. That's it. That's not going to work. It's still going to be blocked. Now, if I want to get unblocked, I have a chance to say and file an appeal and say, hey, wait a minute. You blocked me for this. This is clearly fair use. I've darkened up the video. I've paused it. I've gave commentary. This is fair use. Okay, I would have that time. That would be my appeal process. Very similar situation. That's my time to appeal and say, hey, wait a minute. You made this unfair, decision. And now I'm going to point out all the mistakes you made and why you made those mistakes. There you go. All right, let's check this out, y'all. This is an amazing video. Super funny. Okay.
This that new track. New Money Crew.
New Money Crew.
Represent Big Chris.
With Shantasia.
This reaction is going to go on both channels. I'm going to cut this out. This will be on my main channel because this is now for entertainment purposes. Okay. I'm only going to strictly say how this can relate to criminal law and how procedures work. That's it. Okay.
Featuring your boy, Young Big. Here it comes. Yo. track, holding it down.
With snow cone.
There.
Now, another interesting point I want to make, all right, as this video goes on, you can see that Keenan is basically the judge here. He's the one that's saying, okay, this person, and this person is on this track. Nobody else. Okay? So that's how this is going to relate to that trial we were talking about. We were talking about the Darrell Brooks trial, in case you guys want to catch up and kind of see where this came from. Okay? Because I did kind of start this in the middle of the conversation. So there you go. Like I said, this video right here is going to be on both channels. The other part is the Darrell Brooks trial part 2. If you want to see the beginning and follow up to this point. Okay? And that right there is what I would say is a way that I am protecting the record. So that someone doesn't start from the middle and say, hey, wait a minute, all the context and everything you were talking about before is all missing. So this is TLDR. I didn't read it. I didn't watch the video. It makes no sense. Hopefully they get to this point and then they realize, oh, wait a minute. This was part of a longer discussion and I can go back and watch the beginning of that discussion. Now it's not TLDR. Now the whole thing is one cohesive argument and everything makes sense. I can now follow along. I now know everything that he was trying to say. Simple. All right. So I've just explained everything you guys need to know. We're all caught up. Let's keep going.
They up on this track too. Y'all ain't never heard this many MCs. Here we go. Yeah.
Sloppy Moses, also part of this, bringing that West Coast stank.
Him too.
Now, here's another point. Really interesting point, y'all. Keenan, who is playing the role of the judge right now, he doesn't know these artists. He doesn't know how they're going to rap. He doesn't know what they're going to rap about. He doesn't know if their verses are going to sound whack and horrible compared to everything else. He doesn't know if maybe they're a mumble rapper. And a lot of these guys look like freaking mumble rappers. And he's like, I don't want these guys on my track. My track's getting messed up here. He's like, you guys are ruining this whole process. I need to have order and I need to have, now of course, he's not a good judge because he falls in and says, okay. He falls into intimidation from The Rock. You guys will see it. The Rock intimidates him and he backs down and says, okay, a judge can't do that. A judge cannot back down from intimidation. That's what Darrell Brooks was trying to do. It didn't work. It would never work. Okay? If that started to work, the judge would have to step aside and let a new judge take over. So as I've just thought about it, they would have to recuse themselves. Once that happens, the defendant could argue for a mistrial. They would have a legitimate argue to make because of the jury being unfairly prejudiced against the defendant. Okay, because of whatever information was not valid, was wrong, was misleading. They have grounds to get a mistrial at that point. If it goes down that road, that's where they're at. Now, another judge would probably step in, reevaluate everything they see. They would then make a decision. And they would end up either saying, no, this is not getting a mistrial. There was a problem. We fixed the problem. I don't see any issues with any of the jurors. being unfairly prejudiced against the defendant. All right. That's one option they could do. Another option they could say is, yes, I think there is a inherent prejudice now for some of the jurors. I'm going to declare a mistrial. Everybody go home. You're done. The prosecution would then have the option to retry that person. It's not like if you get a mistrial, it's done and over with. They can't try you again. That's not how that works. They can try you as many times as they want. I believe that's how that works. They can keep going. Now, actually, I don't think that's true. I think eventually, you could have a case of harassment. Like, let's say a prosecutor has a previous, relationship with the defendant, okay? And they kept on and kept on and kept on trying to retry this person. And there's not grounds for it or whatever else. That would be the defendant who would have to bring that to the court's attention to say, hey, his kid and my kid went to school together. And my kid bullied his kid. And now, he has unfairly prejudiced against me because my son is a bully. So there's a lot of different things that the judges has to look at to make sure that that none of the information, none of the evidence is corrupted. Okay, that would be an example of a prosecutor who has a preconceived notion that the defendant is guilty and we must try him with every inch of our being. That's not how the system is supposed to work. They're supposed to try people based on the evidence, not based on personal connection to that person. That's why they have to be strangers. They can't have previous knowledge of each other. If they do, that's an issue that can be brought up during trial. And the defendant would bring up and say, hey, wait a minute. Now, my kid bullied his kid. Isn't that credible evidence? Isn't that something the court should know? Isn't that something that could leave the judge with the inclination that, oh, wait a minute, that there could be something here? You know what I'm saying? That could be grounds for declaring a mistrial or declaring that this prosecutor needs to step aside. We need to get somebody else in here who doesn't have any prior knowledge of this person. They need to be strangers. All right, let's keep going. We're almost done, y'all. This video is definitely going to be sped up a little bit. I think I might put it at about 1.2. Okay, so I'll try and keep it at about an hour. All right, I'll try to keep it about 1 hour of content. That'll be for the whole thing. The reaction video, it's going to be a little long, maybe about 30 minutes. All right. The reaction to this, or I should say analysis, because I've seen the video before. Okay. So that's how that works.
And that's more than enough now. Yeah.
So he's saying there's too many. And I don't know these people. Whole lot of people.
And then we cut it off there. Yeah. I mean, we more than covered on this particular track. And yo, don't think I ain't noticed you trying to fly under the radar, Monster Jams.
New money.
I mean, maybe too deep? I don't know.
Maybe too deep.
King Keith. No!
There goes the rock, y'all.
Oh, man, there ain't no vacancy, B. King Keith does not accept that. Brought the whole hoodlum squad to this track. Where you at, little nitwit? Keep it greasy.
Keep it greasy, y'all.
Black guys. Bad name.
See, he said it's a bad name because you're not two black guys. He's saying your identification here is not cohesive. I'm saying you guys look like a circus clown. Nobody's gonna listen to you. They're gonna fast forward your verse now because you're saying you're two black guys, and you're not two black guys. You know what I'm saying? Come on now.
What it is, with your girl, bring this.
And you all don't forget about your boy Skiffle. Bow, yaka, yaka, yaka.
Skiffle.
Yo, definitely ain't no room for Skip. Yo, Skiffle stay. Okay.
And you know,
See?
we
Okay.
on the track with Kathleen Bell.
Maybe not Kathleen Bell.
Here we go, new music.
Well, essentially, Simon, modern day wit, musings like nothing's more dangerous than a genius with money.
Whatever. Anybody else?
David as Pumpkins.
Everybody can say, you know,
Oh man, y'all. Favorite character on this whole thing. David S. Pumpkins. Happy Halloween, y'all. If y'all haven't seen this before, y'all got a Halloween themed character on a rap song.
let's just keep it orderly. All right, find a place to pop in, all right?
Look at all these
Here we
people.
go.
Watch what
Big
happens.
Chris on the mic, like, yeah.
Keenan is banging his gavel. Keenan is finally saying, I've had it. That's enough. I need order in this courtroom. Perfect. Perfect example of what needed to happen here with this Darrell Brooks trial. Okay? He needs to say, stop it. Stop, stop, stop. That's it.
That did not work. It's like I fear there's too many people on this track. I'm sorry, y'all.
That snatch out, please.
Yo, who this? Any question?
He said, yo, who this? Oh, man, y'all. What a video. You know what I'm saying? I think Happy Halloween's going to be in this, in the description. It'll be somewhere. All right. Happy Halloween, y'all. All right. I'm out.